All right, welcome back to a new episode of the Jimmy T Podcast with a little different partnership here with OSI at UCF, here an all-night study in the podcast recording studio. It's definitely a little different setup. I have a new producer, Leland, who is working the cameras, and a new co-host as well, in Ogarth. And we're here to just kind of talk a little bit about UCF sports this week because it definitely, with football coming back, there's been a lot of new stuff we can talk about. And kind of what we're going to get into today was that there was a football game this weekend for UCF. Unfortunately, it was not the outcome we were all wanting with the Knights losing 30-24, but there certainly was plenty to talk about because we did have a new true freshman quarterback to start the new era, if you want to say it, with him starting under Coach Frost, is Mckenzie Milton. He's all the way from Hawaii, actually. And I found that interesting because it wasn't actually announced that he was going to be playing until like the day of the game. It was kind of big news that he was going to be in. And I know I enjoyed the game for the most part because I was able to enjoy it with my family because it was family weekend at UCF, which was pretty fun. My family came up. I had guest passes that I got with my brother and sister, and I went up into the stands. It was pretty fun. Did you go to the game?
Yeah, I went to the game also. My mom and dad came.
Oh, that's cool.
My older brother came, and then my god brother came.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it was a fun event, I guess.
Yeah.
Not the outcome.
It just was a lot of things, and kind of as I mentioned, something that I didn't enjoy from it and was kind of like not super impressed was by true freshman quarterback Mckenzie Milton. I thought one stat that was really big was there were 4 turnovers during the game. I believe 3 of them were fumbles and 1 was an interception. And I thought that absolutely killed them. And to say that was better than what we've been getting in the past, I think would not be like a great assumption or answer to that because I didn't think we played much better. I think it was about the same. I mean, what did you think?
I knew first half I was thinking he would come out a little rusty because he's a new quarterback. Yeah. After that, I figured he would get it together. I didn't expect him to run so much. That's one thing I was expecting him to be more of a pocket passer, but he took it out and ran. He did some things with his feet that I didn't think he could do.
Yeah. It just was some things at the end of the day, it just was frustrating. And I get this season is going to be frustrating because I think all of us want that change so badly after the 0-12 season that a lot of it's so difficult to understand that it's different with a new coach from a standpoint, but player-wise, for at least another year or two,
we still have the same players.
It's going to be the same players, unfortunately. And not that these players aren't capable of being awesome because they've shown that, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah,
I thought they did a great job. The only issue that they had was in the running game. They gave up 246 yards on the ground to Maryland. That was definitely towards the second half as the defense got tired because of those turnovers of being put in poor spots. That it definitely pushed them back and put them in negative spots.
Most definitely. I feel like Maryland came out to run the ball.
Yeah.
They set out to run the ball. And that opened their play action. With play action, then they ran the ball some more and completely wore down defense. And then after that, they would come down the field and get stopped. Eventually, field goal or punt. And when they did that, that just brought defense back on with the turnovers. Yeah,
because I remember going into halftime that statistically, UCF, it looked like they should have been winning. They were down 10-7 at half, but it looked like statistically we were leading in total yards, we were leading in rushing yards, we were leading in passing yards for the most part, in time of possession. That all leads to something you look at that and you're like, goodness, they had a great half. We're at least leading it in some way, shape, or form, yes, but no. We were down, and it was because of those turnovers. But to their credit, they did come back in the third quarter, and they did make it a game.
Yeah.
They did. They made it a very competitive game to that point to be able to go to overtime at all 17-17. And went to double overtime and it ended at 30-24. And it was I hate a lot of people were upset over the officials, and I don't as much as I do get upset with some calls at some point in times. It's just you can't put yourself in spots where the refs have to decide the game.
Yeah, I feel like that call to me was not the bad.
Oh no, the call in overtime and the call I am referencing. We'll see if we can get a picture or something of it that we can put up that wouldn't be copyright. But we'll try and see that it was a fumble by Milton that was I think it was an incomplete pass. But it was ruled a fumble, and that ended up causing UCF to lose possession in the first part of the second overtime, which gave Maryland the chance to run it in for the touchdown to end the game. But I just don't like when it, because if you put the game in the ref's hands, 90% of the time you're going to lose. And especially that we did have Big Ten officials there, which I thought was odd when I found out at the end of the game. But I don't know. But it's hard to look and be like, this is why we lost, when it's not the case. When you look at the ref didn't make you fumble the ball 3 times. And even with that, where it should have been incomplete, it still was a fumble at the end of the day. And you just can't give them that chance. And I mean, because I even have here for the possession is that Maryland edged us out with time of possession by a little less than a minute. We had more first downs, but we had 4 turnovers. Maryland had none.
Yeah, the turnovers were the killer in this game.
Yeah.
I mean, we were watching it from Stanford. We were driving downfield, turnover, driving down, turnover.
Yep, that kills drives. And penalties, too, were a big thing. We had 7 penalties for 56 yards compared to a Maryland 6 for 47 yards. So that's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, it just can't happen like that.
No.
I feel like after a while, at least the stadium was packed.
Yes, that was something that was pretty great. It was reported to be about 43,000 were in attendance at the first half. And for the second half, we kept around 30,000. And that's something through a sports business class I'm taking right now because that's what I want my minor to be. They said that that's something big that UCF's trying to push, that they want to understandably keep people in the seats for after halftime because they don't want them to go right back out to tailgate, as fun as that is. And one of the things that I thought when I heard that, when he was saying that a whole marketing team is dedicated to this, was that just not suck. Like, that's a very easy way to, like, if you're not down by 40 at halftime, people are going to stay. We weren't even winning at halftime. And we were down 10-7, and still we retained, like, almost all of the people for halftime. And it created a great environment to finish the game. And there was a lot of fans that were out there that were really wanting that win. Yeah,
the student section was packed. I know that for sure. And most of the whole stadium was packed. That was a plus. My younger siblings, everything, loved to see that.
Yeah, my sister really enjoyed it because my brother went to the homecoming game for Houston last year, which we left after halftime because we weren't going to insult the band. We were going to at least let the band perform. The band wasn't going to be down 40-0 or 40-7 or whatever it was. So we left. So he got to see a little bit more positive game, and then my sister as a whole being able to see like Memory Mall for tailgating was so exciting for Nights on the Mall, and then also to see the Marching Knights perform out in front of the arena before the game, before they went to Knights Plaza. It was really cool. It was a lot of awesome stuff, and then the game, singing the alma mater and everything before the game. It was a lot of fun stuff that went on. But with all those positives, there are positives to bring into the game at FIU next week on Saturday. The Knights will be picking up a game that we actually lost last year at home to FIU in a very frustrating home opener on the first weekend of college football. So I don't know how many of those players for FIU because, I mean, if you can find those stats on those people, that's great. I remember Alex Magoo was the quarterback last year. He had a really good game. But it should be a win. I mean, with the defense that we are bringing, if they don't allow them to get tired, the offense doesn't have them on the field too long, then we're able to ball hog and keep time of possession like we're supposed to and built to do under Coach Frost, then I really think it should be a win.
I think it should be a win. I think mainly our defense brings in something great. Brim at linebacker, he brings a standing force, and all the pieces around him. I feel like that should be a W, and
and another person I want to look at to have a good week is definitely Traquan Smith, number 4 for the Knights, if you don't know his name. He had a wonderful week this week, and every time I looked at my brother and was like, NFL. Yeah. NFL. After every single catch, NFL. It was like, this guy is going to be playing on Sundays. And he's like, you think he'll be like a draft pick, like second round? I'm like, no, first.
He's the next Perryman.
Yeah, he's better than Perryman. Because Perryman is a speed guy, like a deep ball speed guy, like kind of like a Mike Wallace type deal if you want to think of a speed guy like that. Traquan Smith, he's like a possession dude. Like if you want to compare him to a younger guy like an Odell Beckham, where just is going to catch it and just be a possession guy. I see that there. To go off topic of this a little bit on Beckham, was I wanted my Tampa Bay Buccaneers to pick him. They ended up taking Mike Evans, so I'm perfectly okay with that. But if they were going to take a receiver, I wanted them to take Beckham. So I trust my eye with wide receivers. But that is one of the games for next week. And before we transition fully into next week, we'll kind of briefly touch on some of the scores from last week, which there were some exciting games. Like the one most notably was up in Louisville, which was where College Game Day was Louisville was thrashing Florida State 63-20. Yeah.
that was. I feel like their quarterback is Heisman material.
Oh, Lamar Jackson, he was fantastic.
Yeah, and at the end of the game, he looked in the camera and said "Free Kodak." So
that's something. That's something else for that kind of talent because they played Syracuse and Charlotte before, and I mean I have family up in Syracuse. My grandfather went there, so I like Syracuse. But I was like, listen. I understand the video game numbers against them, but to then go put the video game numbers on Florida State, that was a big thing. And a game to definitely look at for next week for Florida State to see how they respond is that they go down to Tampa and they play USF.
Yeah, I like to see that game. They said Florida State fans they're telling us that it's because Derwin James is hurt, but I don't think he would have made a 50-point difference.
No, definitely not. And one other game to kind of also, we tied that in with the AAC, with the American Athletic Conference. Another American Athletic Conference game was Houston against Cincinnati, which Houston won 40-16, but was actually down 16-6 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, they came back after a whole bunch of unanswered points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and their defense was a big thing. I think they had 2 pick sixes, 2 defensive touchdowns.
Their defense is serious this year. The ACC division is getting way bigger and way stronger than
definitely. And
it was in years past.
Yeah, then briefly another games for next week that I kind of liked when I looked at. We mentioned Florida State and USF. That'll be big for the shape of the American Athletic Conference. No, we're dealing with before we get into our conference schedule. But Georgia and Ole Miss, that definitely would be an interesting game because Georgia had a big win over Missouri, kind of a late finish in the fourth quarter to get a touchdown to pull ahead. Then Ole Miss almost beat Alabama for the 4th year in a row, and they were up 21-0. It's the second time this year they've been up by like 3 touchdowns and they've lost the game because they let Florida State off the hook in the first week.
Ridiculous. I betted on that game and I lost my money. That was hard.
I actually was at that game, and it was definitely quite an environment. It was a home game for Florida State, and so that's why with the Louisville game it was so interesting to see them go on the road because there just was like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And they didn't do well. And then there was one other game that I thought was a great Big Ten matchup, Wisconsin and Michigan State. I think that'll be a big one.
I like Wisconsin that game.
Yeah, they played well because their defense definitely held LSU in check the first week. And Leonard Fournette didn't get anything in that game.
Yeah. He's turning on now, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, because they're getting into... A lot of people wanted to argue this, like that's what they don't like. That's what they thought about the season last year is against some of the weaker teams.
Yeah, he would turn
started
on.
To get rolling.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, Mississippi State isn't that crappy of a team. Like that's still like a SEC team they're playing. I hate the SEC bias, but that still is the case because it's a lot of quality programs, and they got into that, and it was very interesting. And then if there's anything we talked about this week for this kind of topic for college football, if you want to chime in, definitely get into the comments below, and then we'll also plug our Twitter handles at the very end, or Leland did a great job of putting them in the bottom of the shot when they first showed us at the beginning.
Follow me on Twitter.
And then right before we end up with college football for this week, we'll do some picks between the two of us for some of the better games. So we'll start off with Georgia and Ole Miss. Who do you like?
I like Georgia just because I love Nick Chubb. Mm-hmm. I think he's an elite running back.
Yeah, he's good. Is he a senior this year? I don't know.
I believe whether he is or he isn't, he's going to draft.
Yeah.
So.
That'll definitely be interesting to see if he can live up to Gurley's expectations.
I don't think he's that good, but I think he's good.
I agree with you. I will definitely go with Georgia again. I mean, Ole Miss, their defense has been giving up too much. The offense is very streaky. Chad Kelly, I like him. I think he's a gamer. I think that's definitely the case or at least he has Alabama's number, and he plays well against them. But it seems like everyone else he kind of falters. He makes bad decisions.
Yeah.
And I just because you like a guy, that doesn't excuse bad decisions. And that's what I don't like. So I'll go with Georgia for that. And then we'll do Florida State and USF.
I'm taking Florida State. I would like to see USF.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That would be nice, but I just don't think they can pull it off.
For the sake of the American Athletic Conference, I'll roll with USF. We'll go for an upset.
Yeah.
An upset. And we'll do that. It'll be interesting to see. I think USF's defense, is very underrated, and I think they'll be very interesting to see if maybe they can catch Florida State kind of in catch them sleeping with a down week after getting the crap beaten out of them, but who knows. Then the last game we'll do with the pick, as we talked about this before we started recording, was Florida and Tennessee.
I like Tennessee in this game. I like their running back. He's coming out strong. He's do everything. He's flare him out in the back, do everything, running back. He's going NFL too. So I like Tennessee to upset.
I like Tennessee also because Del Rio, the quarterback, is out this week for Florida. So I'm not currently aware of who the backup is for Florida. And so I just don't know offensively, they're already very shaky to begin with. It is very inconsistent. They rely on their defense a little too much. Even though they have some great talent on that defense, that's not always going to get you by with wins. And I think, especially with not even having their starting quarterback, that I think that will definitely hurt them in the long run. And so it'll be interesting to see, but I do think Tennessee will win. I think that'll be good. And for our last segment today, we'll kind of cover some NFL nights. One of them was very successful this week, and we will get to that. But first, we'll start off with Blake Bortles. Balake, our beloved quarterback that's all the way up in Jacksonville, so far away. He had a pretty decent week this week. Wasn't anything too great. He had 329 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. But he was 31 of 50, and he threw 50 times because Jacksonville was down 21-0 at halftime, so they had to try and get their way back into the game.
Yeah, that was an ugly game. I actually watched that game. It was first half was completely horrible, and then the defense came out and didn't do anything better. So he threw the ball all game. And that's about it. No run game from Yeldon at all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because they definitely have some high expectations this year because of the amount of money they've spent on the defensive side of the ball in general to see how they're able to do it and kind of step everything up. And then Bortles himself to kind of, after last year being such a good season, granted, a lot of those stats were like how he was this game, whereas a lot of second half where they were down by a lot of points, so it just was airing it out. So it makes for great fantasy numbers and looks really nice. But to see whether or not he's able to just put those numbers up in general and they win the game, that's something I would like to see from him.
Yeah, he hasn't produced many wins, but he's on my fantasy team.
Oh, yeah, no, he's definitely a great fantasy quarterback, I will say. And a guy who was a great fantasy wide receiver for me last year was Brandon Marshall, who not many know, but he definitely is a UCF alum. He was back in the day. And he had a pretty good week, as did the Jets. He had 6 receptions for 101 yards in a win against the Bills on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, I watched that game. I thought he was about to break every bone in his knee when he went down for that face mask.
Yeah, he looked like he almost Teddy Bridgewatered his knee.
Yeah, that was absolutely horrible.
It was a very ugly picture. I'll give it to Leland, and so he can throw it in there because it was a nasty picture of him bending his knee. It was not pretty, and if it goes up, if it's up right now, it was really gross. And where it definitely, he even posted it later on. It was like, this was almost it, and it definitely was almost it because it didn't look good. And the last NFL night we can talk about is the running back, which is not also very well known either sometimes, is Latavius Murray for the Raiders, who did not have that great of a week against the Falcons. He only had 8 rushes for 57 yards, but he did have a touchdown. So that was good. And the Raiders did lose in a very shootout-esque game against the Falcons.
Yeah, the Falcons came out hot, and then it bounced out in third quarter. After that, it kind of went. Fourth quarter was a slow quarter, and then eventually went the Falcons' way. And Julio Jones on my fantasy team too, so I know that was.
You were rewarded this week.
I was feeling good this week.
Yeah, he Latavius Murray. He definitely had a great year last year. I had him in fantasy. I'll keep referencing that because I love fantasy football. But I had him last year, and he was a very good year. And I didn't find out until later in the year that he was a UCF alum. And I actually ended up meeting him at the spring game, and I showed you the picture beforehand, and I'll send that to Leland as well, is that he's a huge dude. And I shook his hand. His hand was terrifyingly big. And it's a behemoth. He's a big dude. And it says on here he's 6'3", 230. So that's not a small man.
Yeah, by any means.
And he's done pretty well as a whole in his NFL career so far. And the Raiders are another team like the Jaguars that they need to be having a good year because of the amount of money they've spent. And they have a lot of good guys like Khalil Mack, Derek Carr, even Latavius Murray in the backfield is a pretty nice option to see what are they going to do, because the division arguably is up for grabs.
Yeah.
Because the Chargers, you don't know what you're going to get from them. The same with the Chiefs, and the Broncos, the quarterback situation is a big question mark.
The Broncos defense comes up big every time, though, so I still like Broncos to win that division if it came down to it.
Yeah, because it'll depend, because that was actually what carried them against the Colts this week.
Yeah, most definitely. That strip sack from Von Miller was the turning point in that whole game.
And all right, so I think that we've covered all we wanted to cover today. And just remember, we are here at OSI, here at All Night Study. This is all thanks to Office of Student Involvement. We can thank Leland for editing this. You are awesome. Add whatever you want to show how awesome you are. Go for it. And I would like to thank Zoe, who is our wonderful studio director, for allowing this opportunity to be able to be in here. Thank you, Ogarth, for coming in.
Remember, follow me on Twitter.
Yes, the Twitter handle should be at the bottom. And then before I get out of here, before I sign off, I would like to plug Knights Helping Knights Pantry, which is based out of here, right at All Night Study. It's a lot of awesome stuff that goes on. Donate, pick up anything. All you need is an active student ID here for UCF, and you get a lot of awesome stuff that is very helpful for people in need, and it's a great organization. And then for the Jimmy T Podcast, I am James, signing out.